Now, not everyone took so well to Trump's appearance last night in the garbage truck. I give you Norah O'Donnell, who seems to be on, like, I don't know if she got some sort of, maybe she was jealous of her co-host of that vice presidential debate, Margaret Brennan, for getting all of the criticism from anybody who was paying attention for that debate. Maybe she wanted to be in the news more for her bias, because she seems to be on a streak of getting as hardcore leftist as possible in her last waning months in the anchor chair. Here she is last night on the CBS Evening News.
He landed in Green Bay just a short time ago and then pulled this campaign stunt, speaking to reporters from a garbage truck, proof that he and his supporters are giving no grace to a gaffe by President Biden, where he, in his explanation, inadvertently called Trump supporters garbage. This, of course, was in response to that racist joke about floating garbage told at a Trump rally just last weekend. Vice President Harris is distancing herself from the negativity and trying to drive home her unifying message that if elected, she will represent all Americans.
Oh, my God. It's different hearing it. I saw it written in my packets, Stu.
Stop going on CBS.
That is amazing. That's really incredible. God, she had everything in there about, like, that would show the bias. That's like his campaign stunt. He gave no grace to poor Biden, who clarified. Meanwhile, here's Kamala Harris with her unifying message. Oh, and a joke was told, a racist joke at a Trump rally without attributing it to some comic nobody's heard of. Like, who told the joke? Could have been Trump, right? Like, everything's in there, Stu.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's like, if you go back and you look at, like, the way they reacted after 2016 in the media, I think you get a real window into what's happening right now. In 2016, there was this idea that, and it's part of the hell of my life, is to have to watch the mainstream media every single day and react to it. And when you saw the reaction after 2016, there was this idea that maybe people would kind of wake up and say, well, maybe we are in a little bit of a bubble here. Maybe we don't recognize what's going on in the rest of the country. There was this sort of, don't take Trump literally, take him seriously thing. And maybe we need to wake up a little bit and understand, like, what's the real motivation of regular people in the center of the country. And you thought that might be what they took from it, if they were being honest. But of course, they didn't go that direction. Instead, the lesson they really took out of that election was to say, we should have never covered the Hillary email scandal. Because the fact that we gave any opening at all to that, even though most of our coverage was to disprove it or say it wasn't a big deal, the fact that we alerted to anyone to that at all kind of puts the blame for this Trump thing a little bit on us. And next time, we're not going to let that happen. We saw as we got to 2020 with the Joe Biden laptop, they didn't let it happen, right? They shut it down. They didn't cover it. They banned people from tweeting it at the time. They did all the things they needed to do because they look at this as almost like a legacy, right? I can't be seen as someone who didn't do my part. My part was to make sure every single word I said pointed people to the right direction, led those stupid horses to that glorious water. And they tried it. They've been trying it. I think the American people have woken up, but you have to think if you go back a decent amount of time before the internet, all this stuff probably would have worked on the American people. Thankfully, there's at least a way for us to push back and get the truth. And I just don't think stuff like Trump is Hitler is going to be effective in this environment. I hope I'm right, I mean, but, of course,
who knows? What's amazing, though, because, like, this one's not even Trump as Hitler. It's just, like, the bias in every phrase that she offered was readily apparent. And trust me, I have sat in front of these cameras on network news, and I know exactly how it works. At that level, they have a writer who takes the first crack at the script. Then you would have a producer, and on CBS Evening News, you'd have an executive producer look over the script before it went into the prompter. And you would have the anchor look at the script before she read it to make sure she's comfortable with what she's about to say. So at least that level of review happened before Norah O'Donnell got out there and said it was a campaign stunt. It was, he gave no grace to poor President Biden, who's clarified the remarks, and he was only responding to that racist joke that was told at the Trump MSG rally, by whom, I'll leave it to you to figure out, could have been the big man himself. And, oh, by the way, here's Kamala Harris with her unifying message. It's dripping with bias. It's obvious for enough for a 5-year-old to see. And they saw it too. They just don't care. They know she's not winning. She might be tied, but she's not winning. And they truly are in a panic. They will do whatever they can now to stop her. And that was reminding me of Stephen's opening point. I want to give you a little bit more. Lawrence O'Donnell will not be outdone on the on the excuse making for Joe Biden. And here was his take on how Joe Biden didn't really say that half of the American people, those supporting Trump, are garbage. SOT 8.
Do so, they had to refuse to listen to the actual sentence Joe Biden spoke. They had to refuse to look at the written words of that sentence. They had to refuse to understand English grammar. They had to refuse to understand what a singular possessive is. They had to refuse to understand what apostrophe S means. They had to refuse to remember what they learned in elementary school about the English language. The terrible campaign reporters and commentators who are covering this campaign, it's not all of them, just the terrible ones, are completely exploitable by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump knows it, which is why Donald Trump, the stupidest candidate ever to run for president, climbed into a garbage truck today.
Oh, God. Possessive apostrophe gate.
They don't understand apostrophes. That's what went wrong there, Stephen.
Trump went and did like this stunt in the vest in the garbage truck. Kamala Harris needs to come out wearing an apostrophe costume for Halloween. Like watching the American media try to will an imaginary apostrophe into existence is a top 5 thing. And I've been doing this a while. This is a top 5 thing I've ever seen. And they know how bad this was because you can see the gears grinding in these people about how do we explain this one. And it's kind of like Sideshow Bob doing the Die Bart Die tattoo on his chest. He's like, no, this is the Bart the. No, there's a comma there. You just didn't see it. It's absolutely incredible. And like I said, you can gauge the level of panic based on how ridiculous their reaction is. And that has a lot to do with
Well, wait,
Norah
hold
O'Donnell.
that thought. Okay, let me give you another one. You don't like that one? You don't like Lawrence O'Donnell? Why don't we try out Kelly O'Donnell over on NBC? Here's her theory. SOT 15.
If you look at about a minute's worth of the remarks from President Biden when he was speaking to Latino groups last night, that context appears more clear. Also, it's important to know that the president always has that battle against stuttering, and that seemed to be apparent in this as well. We're left in a position now, as anyone who looks at this, to make their own assessment.
His battle is his brain is applesauce.
Well, here's what's interesting. Here's what it kind of irritates me because I know some people who have a stutter, and I've seen them stutter. And when they're trying to say something and the stutter gets in the way, they then say the thing again. They clarify. If the stutter actually makes them say something which they didn't mean to say, which is, by the way, not how the stutter works, then they clarify it the very next sentence. That's not what he did. He went on and started attacking the guy from a different point of view. He didn't say, I didn't mean to say that half of Trump's supporters or that all of Trump's supporters are garbage. He didn't do that. He just kept going. And by the way, even when he, quote, clarified, he said, this is what I meant to say, after the fact in a tweet that he sent out. This is what he didn't say. You misunderstood me because of my stutter.
Yeah, this also comes after a week after he said we have to lock Trump up, and Joe Biden is the head of the Justice Department of the executive branch of the United States government. And so a thing there is, Lawrence O'Donnell is who he is. Kelly O'Donnell is the president and the acting head of the White House Correspondents Association. So she's in charge of all like the White House press briefing people and whatever. She's the person who kind of oversees that whole organization. And so Stu said something that I've been on for a while, that when Kamala, was installed into this nomination, they all view this as a 2016 redo, We have to get this one right. So he's right. We're not going to cover emails. We're not going to cover Doug Emhoff punching a woman in the face in public. We're not going to cover anything that could be the story that leads to Donald Trump being back in the White House, because the one journalist who does that, it becomes a pariah. They become a leper in their own industry. No book deals, no TV hits, no promotions, no shows, no anything. And that is, once you realize that, that's where all of this comes from. And as far as CBS, I hear everyone screaming about bias, and I'm someone who does it all the time. Republicans need to stop going on CBS. They need to make a unified message that says we are not going to engage with this network anymore. This is not a news network. When Stephen Colbert is the flagship personality of CBS News, and this is a guy who hosts a propaganda show for the Democratic Party, they're all just kind of following suit here. And so I guess eventually you have to do something about this. And CBS has been pretty much the most egregious actor. Norah O'Donnell is the person who hit the mute button on J.D. Vance during a presidential debate. Either you guys will learn your lesson, or you can just keep engaging in the same kind of behavior and keep screaming about bias. Eventually, you have to do something about this.
Am I Racist is the Daily Wire's box office hit comedy, and it's the #1 grossing documentary of the decade. Good news is it's now available to stream exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. From the same team that brought you the cultural phenomenon, What is a Woman?, comes their next big question. Am I racist? In this hilarious and revealing film, Matt Walsh goes deep undercover, infiltrating the bizarre world, truly, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's so good. You've got to see it. He gets the most powerful figures in the race-hustling establishment to say all the quiet parts out loud, exposing the absurdity of modern corporate and institutional diversity practices. And now you can witness the collapse of DEI from the comfort of your own couch. But here's the catch. You can only watch Am I Racist with a Daily Wire Plus membership. So don't miss out. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code DEI to get 35% off your new annual membership. That's dailywire.com/subscribe, and be sure to use the code DEI, love that, for 35% off your subscription. Am I Racist is streaming now exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.